It was an old, illegally built freight train running underneath the city without anyone's knowledge or permission. What happens is originally a company that is now AT&T, a telephone company, they got permission to build telephone wires underneath the river, and they're like, hey, while we're down here, why don't we build a 6-foot-tall cargo train? We can move coal and cargo to the basement of all these buildings we're connecting to anyway. I'll make a little extra scratch on the side. And they do it, and it actually works. It actually helps out the city quite a bit, and we all end up using it because we had a huge traffic problem above ground. Hello? We had a huge traffic problem above ground, and so going underground makes sense. So they operate it, makes sense, makes a lot of money. Eventually they stop using it, we kind of forget about it, everyone kind of stops remembering that it's down there, and then that piling punctures that train tunnel. The Chicago River starts draining into that tunnel.
Wow.
And then that tunnel starts draining into the basement of every building in downtown Chicago.
Oh my.
This causes rolling blackouts throughout the city, $36.5 million in damages, and economists estimate altogether ended up costing Chicago $1.95 billion. You factor in lost productivity. My favorite part about the story, though, is first off how it's discovered. It's in the Merchandise Mart, that giant building we saw. In the basement, one of the workers goes down there, and he calls the city on the radio. He's like, hey, you gotta get down here as soon as you can. I think a water main burst. There's water all the way up to my thighs now. Wait a minute. Oh no, there are fish in the water. Repeat, there are fish in the basement. Something is up. And one of the reporters hears about that on the radio, and he runs over to that bridge, and he sees there's actually a vortex of water going down to that train tunnel. And then the workers run over to it and heroically hurl a mattress on it, hoping it would plug the hole and stop the leak. It didn't. I don't know why they thought it would. Mattresses are not watertight. So that didn't actually help. Instead, they had to go into the tunnel and secure it from the inside. It took about 3 days just to plug the hole, 6 months to pump out all the water, and about 6 years to handle all the legal battles. It ended up being the city that had to pay for all that. And the tunnels are actually used now. They're used again. Not for a train anymore. We use it for telecommunications lines, like fiber optic. It runs underneath the river. But we have new rules. If you have river access above it, you have to have watertight seals on the other side. So it's not going to flood the city again, but it did happen. It's called the Great Flood of Chicago of 1992, or as NPR called it, the most Chicago thing that has ever happened. An illegal train tunnel flooding the city. Now, on our right, we have some people waving on the way back. We also have a park system here and some residential towers around it. This is actually pretty new. This whole area, for most of my life even, was zoned for industry. This is all going to be industry, and over time we started to turn this more into residential. And the other thing I want to point out is this park system has some hills. I know those hills aren't impressive. They're pretty pathetic, actually. Those hills, we had to build ourselves because Chicago is not a naturally hilly place. We're a very flat city, very, very flat city. We're very close to the water line, and we're all built on what is technically swampland. That means it's a nightmare for building conditions, and particularly for building one very important thing every city needs, a sewer. And in 1850, we had to build a sewer here anyway, even though it was going to be complicated, and a man named Ellis Chesbrough was hired to do that, and he came up with a wild solution, really amazing. He does the math, he realizes we can't afford to dig underneath the city, we don't have the technology for it, we don't have the time, we don't have the money. But what we can do is we can lift the city up around it and build underneath it that way, by hand. And that's what we did. And I want to make it clear, I'm not joking, and we literally did, we lifted up the entire city of Chicago just using the power of muscles. It's called the Raising of Chicago, and what you do is you put these, a few dozen of these things called jack screws underneath the building. Think like a modern car jack. And you hire a team of men known as building raisers to slowly lift it up, quarter inch by quarter inch by quarter inch, all in rhythm, like a row team. And from 1850 to 1868, using that method, we lifted up the entire city by 4 to up to 14 feet.
What the hell?
Yeah. Absolutely amazing. I don't know what that is in meters. I keep meaning to look that up again. I had it in my head before, and I'll look it up later. But we lifted up an entire city by about a dozen feet. That's just step one in building a sewer system, which we're going to come back to. But right now, we got another important thing to address. We have Groupon. Yeah. All right. No enthusiasm for Groupon. I get it. But this is in the old Montgomery Ward complex. That was the important part. Does anyone remember Montgomery Wards? Yeah, it went away in the 2000s, but it was basically Amazon of the 1900s. Mail order catalog business in general were largely stationed in Chicago. because it was we had the rail system going through, which meant we sorted all the mail in the United States here, which meant it was very cheap to ship out catalogs. So we mail out your catalog, you'd mail in your order, and we mail out your product. Very quick, very efficient, very, very profitable. Ended up making a lot of money, and eventually Montgomery Wards was selling like houses by train. You could order a house, send it out west, you put it together piece by piece, almost like a Lego set. All right, we're gonna come back to that train or that sewer system in a second. But right here we have Goose Island. This island is man-made. It was built by Mayor William Ogden, first mayor of the city of Chicago, and is designed specifically to be a port to kind of make it a little bit easier for us to move river traffic around. Because Chicago in our early days was more than anything, we were a port city. And then we were a railroad city, and now we're a, I don't know, we do a little bit of everything. Actually, this is just a weird bragging point. I don't know why they were rating it, but Visa and MasterCard rated us as the most diverse economy in America. We got a little bit of everything. All right, that was just a brag. I don't know why you brought that up. On our left, we got the Montgomery Ward Complex, just past it. You got condos. That actually used to be the Montgomery Ward's headquarters, right across the street from that. And, oh, one other fun thing. This warehouse, like if you've ever seen like an Amazon warehouse, it's basically what this was, like in the 1900s. Huge, all this land to get through, and for workers to get around efficiently enough to find all those products and ship them out, they were trained in the art of the roller skates. You had a roller skate around the building to grab things, which to me sounds very dangerous. Grabbing, yeah, remember they were shipping like houses, and you're doing that on roller skates? Ooh, I wouldn't want to do that. Thankfully, like OSHA came along and like, no. Well, that was later. All right, step one, building a sewer system in Chicago. That was elevating the city. We did not have any natural elevation in Chicago. We created it through the power of just sheer labor. Managed to lift up the entire city. And if you look up that term, Raising in Chicago, on your phone briefly, you can look at the images tab. Really cool. You can actually see what it looked like. Dozens of people underneath the building, some people in the balconies watching their view change throughout the day. Everything remained open, by the way. I forgot to mention that. All the buildings and businesses and things, they were open. All you had to do was change the angle of the ramp every few hours. So the entire city is getting lifted up. That was to create elevation so you could have drainage. And that drainage would go into the river, and then the river would drain out into Lake Michigan, and Lake Michigan is where we would pull the drinking water supply, and oh no, something's wrong here. We gotta figure something out. So we elevate the city, allows that drainage, and then that dirty water's gotta go somewhere. And we decided to solve our problem by making it someone else's problem. We reversed the course of the Chicago River. Chicago River flows backwards. It used to flow out towards Lake Michigan, now it flows down towards St. Louis. Guess who was not happy about this? St. Louis. They did not like the idea of somebody being part of Chicago's sewer system because they're not team players. I'm totally kidding. I swear I'm kidding. I get why I'd be upset. But reversing a river, pretty complicated, but also surprisingly simple. Like the physics of it are really simple. All we did to reverse our river was we built a canal on the southwest side of the city, and this canal connects the Chicago River to the Des Plaines, the Illinois, ultimately the Mississippi, and it uses, and this is key, much lower riverbed base. So it kind of goes down, it's like a water ramp. So it's going to be lower than the lake, and all the water would kind of flip like a switch and flow the opposite direction. But it was still a huge undertaking. It was worldwide news for a decade. While we're building this thing, everyone's amazed by it. The scale of it's incredible. Most of the engineers and laborers that worked on this ended up building the